Welcome to War Room Impeachment. We're live from Capitol Hill. We're at 1 o'clock this afternoon. We will restart on the trial of the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. It's Monday, the 27th of January, the year of our Lord 2020, episode 135. Remember, we're here every day until the day after the acquittal of Donald John Trump in the only third impeachment in the history of the Republic. And we thought, actually, Jason Miller, my co-host this morning, we actually thought that would happen sometime Friday or Saturday. But some developments over the weekend has moved that. We're live on the John Frederick Network, on Salem Broadcast Radio, on America's Voice, the platform for the Trump Revolution. You can get all the rallies and everything dealing with President Trump on America's Voice.news, and also Newsmax TV, Chris Ruddy's great cable TV news operation down there in Palm Beach. Jason, there are no coincidences.
None. Zero.
Folks, over the week we're planning and we're talking about it, and we got some news to announce about what we're going to do with the War Room and everything, and then two bombs. The the beatification project of St. Lev goes now with audio. And then book deal Bolton, and I got to tell you, we got to go back, Vish and Dan and the crew and Greg. We got to find out when the first day that those words came out of Jason Miller's mouth. Because did you ever nail it? Book deal Bolton.
This has always been about the book deal. This is his revenge, get even, score settling of presidential magnitude. And so just as you thought this impeachment trial was winding down, all the indication that there are going to be no witnesses, we're going to vote next maybe Friday or Saturday to acquit President Trump. Folks, we are back, and this is a rumble. And if you thought for 1 second that now is the time to put down the pitchforks or to take it easy, no, this is the time where we have to go hardcore and call it out. And so a couple things I want to make sure we lay out for folks, Steve, this morning. One, how big of a deal this is, how this is a seismic shift in the last few, and I think Raheem even called there to be something specific to Bolton that popped up just before.
He said something's going to break on Bolton.
Yeah, and so he correctly called that. But this is ultimately, though, I think this is going to be the Democrats' undoing. We're seeing Trump's numbers coming up, and let me tell you why. Every single time that Democrats have said, just wait until this person testifies. Remember back with Vindman or Morrison or any of these folks back during George Kent, back during the House hearings, these folks all fell apart. They were bad. And there was a massive tell this morning. Shifty Schiff was just on CNN's New Day with Allison Camerata and John Berman. And Allison asked him the question, are you going to be able to read the manuscript that Bolton has put out there? Are you going to be able to get your hands on this? And he started already backpedaling away from the manuscript, saying it's not about the manuscript, it's about his notes. Right there, that was a massive tell that there's not jack you-know-what in this manuscript from Bolton. There's a bunch of hype, there's a bunch of hyperbole, conjecture, but he doesn't have anything solid to back any of this nonsense up. I want to see Bolton testify so we can cross him up and chop him up into a million pieces on a global audience.
We've been very consistent on this show, and I just did radio again this morning with Michael Patrick Leahy. We have said from day one, we're fine with witnesses. Bring Bolton in. We'll throw in Mick Mulvaney, throw in Mike Pompeo. We'll give you Vogt and Blair from OMB, and we'll throw in all the emails. You get all that? Okay, you get all that. And we get the whistleblower. We get the guys on Schiff's staff, after the whistleblower's emails are out. We get Brennan. We get Biden. Maybe Hunter, to me, is kind of collateral damage.
Where's Hunter? Hey, Vish, can you do a Yahoo Maps to figure out how long it'll take for Hunter to drive from Hollywood Hills to here in that brand new Porsche of his? Because he's going to be a witness.
The two that we're going to have after the show today, War Room Pandemic, which we started over the weekend about this horrific situation coming out of China. But really the two maps that are the most important in the world are, one is the pandemic map coming from the heartland of China. The second most important map is the corruption is spread by the Biden family, right, from the Ukraine to China. That's what we ought to have. And how long does it take him to take a Greyhound bus from California? But I want to go back just for the audience that maybe has not stayed tuned to this over the weekend. Let's go back to Friday with Lev Parnas and the audio, and then walk through. We have Saturday. We have the great, open, very tight legal argument to put Schiff on trial, take it apart brick by brick, and then Bolton. Walk people through what actually happened, and then what's the state of play this morning?
Yeah, so late last week, ABC News got the audio of Lev Parnas and at a dinner with President Trump, April of 2018, where former Ukraine ambassador or U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, they were discussing her, and Trump said, "Get rid of her. I want her out of here." And he told Johnny DeStefano, who's used to be at the White House, get rid of her. That sent everyone into a tizzy again because it's the attention to a detail. It's like a behind the scenes, as if it's some sort of scandalous thing. If anything, this actually vindicates President Trump because it shows that he's cared about Ukraine from back in April of 2018. I mean, this is almost 2 years ago. This was well before any call with Zelensky or before a full year before Biden even jumped into the race.
And he didn't remove her for a year.
Yeah,
he has the right to. When I was there, we were removing ambassadors all the time. You know, President Trump's got the absolute 100% right to change ambassadors, to put political appointees versus careerists. She's a careerist. You do this all the time.
So this sent the national media into an entire tizzy,
total frenzy.
Then the Trump legal team laid out their defense 2 hours on Saturday, generated good.
Opening salvo. And what did you think about that?
I thought that it accomplished the goal that we wanted, which was a set of good headlines, and it got senators that may have been a little bit squeamish into a good place.
Because you and I differed a little bit. I wanted a little more fire. I wanted a little more showtime. It was very tight. It was very tightly argued. And you said, hey, the key thing on day one is don't show the crazy. Keep the Lamar Alexanders and everybody locked in. He won the room. That's the most important thing. This thing will now fly through, and you can put Schiff and these guys really on trial in the Bidens on Monday or Tuesday if you go, but they won the day, which was most important.
They won the day, and two things can be true at the same time here. I wanted to see more fire as well on Saturday. I wanted to see, I love the montages. I love how they started off putting Schiff on trial. They played his made-up phone call video. That was brutal. That was brutal. And again, that Senator John Barrasso from Wyoming saying that Schiff's face literally went ashen white or went pale as soon as they started playing that because he knew his credibility was cooked.
No longer Pericles of Athens.
No, and then last night we get the leak of all leaks. This is what
right before that though. We won Sunday, even though they didn't flood the zone on the talk shows. The mainstream media essentially understood what had happened. We had won the day on Saturday, and this thing was going to be no witnesses. Right, the votes were locked in. You lost Murkowski. They were talking about head on pike. So the Sunday shows the railhead of all the venom. Even though we didn't flood the zone with a ton of people, that you came out of Sunday, early Sunday afternoon with this thing's going to be wrapped up by Friday.
Yeah, and so it was looking literally this thing's going to be done next Friday, next Saturday. President will give his
Super Bowl, then do State of the Union, or do Super Bowl, Iowa caucus, State of the Union, game on, 2020, here we are.
Now it's all changed. So this story, this book deal Bolton story, to be clear for anyone who hasn't read it, it's a very lengthy story. Maggie Haberman and Michael Schmidt, two Pulitzer Prize winning
That was kind of
reporters.
random they got the story, right? Totally random that the New York Times got the scoop.
Yeah, I'm guessing. My
Two
guess.
assassins.
Yeah, and I'm sure the sources are both anonymous and I don't know, maybe just take a guess. The book agents. So keep in mind on this. So we want to kind of unpack this a bit. It's basically saying that the manuscript that John Bolton has written says that President Trump told him directly in August of last year that he was holding up the aid until there were investigations, until it was announced that there were Ukraine investigations into the Democrats, including Biden. So I'm going to throw the BS flag on this. Now, I'm not throwing it on the reporters.
Before we do that, we're going to come back after the break and do that. But walk through exactly how powerful this is coming out on a Sunday night on the day before really President Trump's defense starts today. He had the highlight reel on Saturday. You saw we were winning, but you get down to the thing itself today. It's not random that it comes out on a Sunday.
No, because
walk people through just the media landscape of how this thing's. If you were weaponizing this, how would you do it?
If I were doing it from the other side, I'd do exactly the way that they did. And we're seeing Schiff, again, already starting to move the goalpost. It's not even about getting his hands on the manuscript. Now he wants the notes. He's already pushing things further and further. And so what this is a death by media leak. That is what they want to do, or impeachment by media leak. This is what they're trying to do to the president, because as we saw on Saturday, the Democrats have nothing. Their case completely falls apart. The call was perfect. President Trump did nothing wrong. Democrats know that their witnesses and their arguments are complete garbage.
Okay, we're going to come back. A couple announcements today. Right after a War Room impeachment, we're going to have a special War Room pandemic. Got a whole host, I'll get into it later, of experts both on public health and also about China, on what's really going on, the facts. The show on Saturday kind of exploded. And after that, we're going to do Vox Populi. For 2 hours, we're going to take your phone calls on both the what's happening on the impeachment and also what's happening on this pandemic. And you can get everything up at warroom.org. You can also go to all the sites and on podcasts, the Things on Fire. We're very appreciative of America's Voice.news, John Fredericks Radio Network, Newsmax, all the team here for helping us get full distribution on all the programs. But boy, we thought War Room Impeachment would be locking up this week. It's not. Episode 135. Be back in a second.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Episode 135. It's Monday, 27th of January, year 2020. We're live on Capitol Hill, just yards away from where at 1 o'clock today, the president's defense really starts with Pat Cipollone, Jay Sekulow, Pam Bondi, and a real incredible, excellent team of lawyers from the White House. But it may be, as we say, OBE, overcome by events, the beginning of this defense today because of the coordinated attack. There are no coincidences in this town. Do you agree with me, Mr. Miller?
No, this is specifically done to drive book sales. This is why I've been hammering, and we've been hammering on here on the show, on Book Deal Bolton. When this was teased just before Christmas, every aspect about Bolton saying that he might want to testify, that he wants to be in the news. Keep in mind, the same book agents who handle John Bolton handle Anonymous. They handle James Comey. This is a
I'm seeing a pattern.
Seeing a pattern.
This is
a complete racket to drive book sales. So
what agents would those be?
That'd be Javelin, Matt Latimer, Keith Urban.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Latimer write a very vicious book about the Bush administration when he worked there? Wasn't he the guy that came out with at the time it was people's heads were blowing up about he wrote about the Bush administration?
I believe so. I did not read the book because
that was Latimer's claim to fame. Nobody knew who he was, and then all of a sudden this book came out, and it was quite controversial. It was an inside look at the Bush administration.
So the story that we're talking about, New York Times front page today, Trump tied Ukraine aid to inquiries he sought, Bolton book says, and written again by Maggie Haberman, Michael Schmidt, and there are a number of things that I want to build this up again, the significance to it and some of the buried leads and things that are going on here.
Just so for our audience right there, this is how they roll, ladies and gentlemen. It's the lead story, the two assassins. And we love us some Maggie Haberman, but Maggie Haberman, the killer, right? Maggie Haberman and Michael Schmidt. Money to Ukraine tied to inquiries, Bolton book says. Mr. Jason Miller wrote that headline 3 months ago, like the second episode of the show.
Yeah, this is what they're doing because the Democrats do not have a case. So there are a number of things.
The opposition party media.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
the Democratic Party is hapless. The candidates in Iowa are in the witness protection program. Nobody knows who they are, and nobody cares who they are. This is everything. This is how they take back the presidency, correct?
So the buried leads here, and it should be obvious leads, but the buried leads here is, number one, the Democrats have no case. This is why they're doing this, because they're realizing this is winding down. Again, all the reports are that we were going to vote on this on Friday or Saturday. We're going to be wrapping up impeachment. This is specifically designed to go and try to, from Bolton's side, this is about book sales. That's all this is about. This is about how does he remain relevant? Because right now, Book Deal Bolton, he's irrelevant. I mean, he's the biggest warmonger probably in the entire city. There isn't a war that he's never thought that was a good idea. There wasn't a good idea. I mean, he's just hardcore Mr. Warmonger. He wants to be relevant. This clearly shows, Steve, he was working on this book at the White House.
Not working on the book. They had a draft of the book. Let's just go through the buried lead here, which people have not focused on yet. The book's date, and correct me if I'm wrong, War Room Rap response is 17 March, right? St. Patty's Day. Or it's within 24 hours or 48 hours of the Ides of March.
Is Mr. Jack Maxey in the War Room said at 2?
At Bolton? 2, Bolton. Jack Maxey for the score from the engine room. It was genius. At 2, Bolton, right? Ides of March, coming in with the final knife thrust, right? The book. Let's just, ladies and gentlemen, the Amazon page, it's called In the Room, in the Room Where It Happens. I think is the title of the book. In the Room Where It Happens, comes up in the middle of the firestorm last night. It just magically appears about 9 or 10 o'clock at night.
It doesn't get any more coordinated than that.
No, people should understand too. Remember, Matt Drudge used to have the radio show on Sunday night. I had the show on Sunday night. The reason is the news cycle, the railhead of all the hate is the Sunday morning shows, but the news day starts Sunday night. That's where you get the new Drudge leads. That's where you get all the stuff that's going to come out, online. That's going to be the lead in the paper is all Sunday night. Sunday night is when you want to fire off the football, right? So this is exactly what they did. March 17th, when you look at that, the Amazon page comes up for the book, for pre-orders. It's not even subtle. It's in your grill. But here's the thing. That means the book has to be being bound before December. The reason, and I never could figure out, how did John Bolton get a $3 million book deal? How did Book Deal Bolton, you were mocking him. I was sitting there going, how did he get $3 million? Because I know what they want. When they give you those kind of numbers, they got to guarantee hundreds of thousands of sales. You got to deliver some heat.
They want heads on pikes.
They want heads on pikes.
For real.
John Bolton had a manuscript, at least in draft form, to show Javelin had something to walk around. It was called a book.
And okay? I want to make sure that we're pushing back on this very specific allegation here, because what Bolton is alleging would fly in the face of every witness testimony we have heard so far. It would ignore things like President Trump wanting to dive into misspent Ukraine aid and Ukrainian corruption, going back to even a month and a half before the phone call. It ignores the fact that he was upset with Ukraine, talking about burden sharing, talking about our terrible ambassador that we had over there, going back to April of 2018. The other thing, too, is there is no way that President Trump went to John Bolton and said, hey, John, let's go ahead and hold this aid until I can do this thing that helps me on a domestic political front.
At that time, given Venezuela, given the Iran mess up, given Venezuela, John Bolton was on the outs. And this is why we always knew that Bolton was going to have something like this. But that's my point. Why be afraid of witnesses like John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney or Mike Pompeo or Blair or Vogt or all the OMB emails? Bring it. Bring everything.
It's backfired for them every single time.
And people we haven't heard from, we know, and this is, listen, we're going to jump here to commercial break in a second. Jesse Waters, and guys, I want to get this up on the site. I think I sent it to you over the weekend. Jesse Waters at Waters World, and Jesse has been on top of this as anybody. He does an 8.5-minute open the other night on Saturday night, which is absolutely brilliant. If you go through it, and Jesse says, hey, I thought I was on top of this as anybody. I thought I knew the details. He said there were revelations in the open on Saturday that they started to take Schiff's thing apart brick by brick. That's why they got to do wash, rinse, and repeat today. They got to do it over and over and over again. When the president has a defense, when the president, this is what I'm saying, hey, if this is what Bolton's got to say, bring it. Because you know what? Pat Cipollone and Pam Bondi, right, and some tough hombres that the president has on his defense team are going to get to cross him. Right? So let's lance the boil. This is the best that Bolton's got. Let's lance the boil, because I 100% agree with you. I think when you look at all the facts, you're going to realize this was to sell books and to make John relevant and make him a hero where he really wants to be a hero with the mainstream media.
And keep in mind, he basically was irrelevant until the Adelsons, Sheldon Adelson, recommended him to President Trump, and they pushed him in there.
I think it was a host of others. I don't want to put the whole burden on Sheldon, but he's had a number of supporters to have that job, although people thought it was not a good fit as far as, one, the president's policies, but more kind of the psychology of it, right?
I think Sheldon Adelson needs to cut off John Bolton if he hasn't already. I mean,
I'm sure I would anticipate that people would see that Et2 Bolton, because this is about as brazen as you can get. I mean, this is not even subtle.
So two tweets.
And that's why I think he's got to be crossed. Hey, it's the legal system. And look, correct me if I'm wrong. We're getting to this next segment. We've got about 30 seconds here. We're getting witnesses.
Yes.
You don't think there's any doubt?
No, I think we're going to have witnesses, and I think this will end up being a good thing for President Trump.
100%. We've argued from day one. There's no need to get out of here quickly. The more time you've got, the more that they have to expose themselves, the worse they look. Okay, you get everything you want at warroom.org. This is War Room Impeachment, episode 135. Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon. We're going to be back in a moment. We're going to deconstruct all this and talk about, we're in for a long week. In fact, we're in for many long weeks, we believe. Stephen K. Bannon, War Room Impeachment. We're going to return in just a moment with Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, episode 135 on the John Fredericks, The Salem, the AmericasVoice.news, and Newsmax TV. Back in a second.
War Room, Impeachment. With Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, and Raheem Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Episode 135. We're live on Capitol Hill. It's what was supposed to be not perfunctory, but a day that the president's defense team really came off the football and started laying out its case. It had been rumored that they might wrap it up in one day, that we get to the questions, maybe a day or two of questions, Tuesday, Wednesday. They go through all the 11, amendments they had on Thursday, vote them all down, no witnesses, vote for acquittal on Friday, go watch the Super Bowl, go to Iowa, go back to the State of the Union, game on for 2020. That's not going to happen, is it, Mr. Jason Miller?
No, and I think Bolton's name is going to come up today from the Trump legal team. And if I were the Trump legal team, I would go right at it and talk about this fits right into the nullification project of Donald J. Trump. Literally, as ABC, Washington Post polling is out, saying that Trump is literally his single best standing of his presidency. That's also out today in the Washington Post. This is on schedule to be dismissed on Friday or Saturday of this week. This is why they dropped this. This is not going to change any of the material facts. I would go right at Bolton. I would take it on. I would smash it to 1,000 pieces today. I don't think we run from it. I think we run towards it.
100%. I mean, you can't. First off, you can't run from it. They have weaponized this. They try to weaponize Lev Parnas, and you're absolutely correct. When you look at these, each one's going to be the thing that takes him down, and they all turn out to be non-events. In fact, let's talk about the polling for a second. Why are they not leading? Why are the stories this morning not leading about the polling? The reason is you've had Lev Parnas' audio and you've had John Bolton. Against those two things, we've had a defense that is waking up everybody, because people, once you put Schiff on trial, you realize it's all hearsay, it's all conjecture, it's all presumption. Remember on the montage they used presumption from Sondland, right? I presume. So the two powerful things over the weekend were the facts laid out by a group of professionals, which is Pat Cipollone, Pam Bondi, Jay Sekulow, the team over there.
And my man, Mike Purpura, who I think was the breakout star on Saturday.
He was a big-time star. I mean, he's a guy, works for over the White House counsel's office. I mean, he was fantastic. Just walked through it, had both passion and facts.
And I want to make sure on this, the polling, that people realize this. So again, this is ABC and Washington Post. This is not a, warroom.org poll. It's not one of the snap polls that I famously defended with Chuck Todd on Meet the Press Daily back in 2016. The polls, all the polls. Here's what this says. Not only is Trump essentially in a dead heat with all the Democrats, his numbers have improved since October. This was when they went in for the kill. This is when they dropped this impeachment nonsense and started going right at it. Here's a massive tell. With just over 9 months until Election Day, Americans see Trump as a slight favorite for re-election, with 49% expecting him to win and 43% predicting that his Democratic challenger will prevail. Folks, this is a Washington Post ABC poll.
Brutal.
And so what you're seeing on the front page of the papers and on CNN and on Morning Joe is completely disconnected from what America actually thinks right now.
Let's go back to the politics of this vote. We got a couple of minutes left in this segment. The pressure, what they did on Saturday was so important. They held the room. And by holding the room, they gave, it wasn't just a heads on pike comment, which was obvious thing, but they made there was no crazy on Saturday. Saturday was a very tightly controlled, go to the facts. These are lawyers going to the facts. You could tell at the end of that this was going to be pretty quick. Let's move on. Let's get back to the business of the nation.
Yeah, and it was very clear. Even Democrats were walking out saying they made their case. They did a good job today. We saw positive comments along those lines from Manchin, from Doug Jones. Democrats are in really bad position. I can't overstate that enough, how bad a position the Democrats' case was at the close of business Saturday.
And they had finally knocked off, for a couple of days, we had Schiff as literally Pericles of Athens, right? I mean, I have never seen the mainstream media hoist up somebody, right, to almost an over-the-top nature. No, we first admit his presentation, I think, was quite powerful and very strong. The content of it was very weak because it was all hearsay. They brought nothing new, and they kept talking about between overwhelming evidence and, oh, by the way, we need witnesses.
I want to read two tweets real quick before we go to break. Sean Davis over at Federalist John Bolton is running the exact same revenge playbook against Trump that James Comey used. He's even using the same agent and leaking to the same reporters, all because he's mad Trump fired him for leaking and trying to start new wars. It's so boring and predictable. And Molly Hemingway, this is obviously book promo coordinated with compliant media. Yes, but an additional word of skepticism. These particular folks have a pattern of overpromising and underachieving with their quote-unquote bombshell anti-Trump book rollouts. That's exactly what we're seeing here.
Exactly. That's why, and you picked it up, Adam Schiff already went to, we need the notes.
It knows, because he knows that manuscript will not have anything that puts President Trump in a bad spot.
Okay, Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller. It's War Room Impeachment, episode 135. We thought we'd be wrapping up this week. We are not. Game day's on. We'll be back with 135 in a moment.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
It's Monday, the 27th of January, the year of our Lord 2020. We're already almost through January. We're still in the trial of the century, which we thought was going to wrap up this week, given the great presentation of the President's defense teams. Jason Miller, Stephen K. Bannon, War Room Impeachment, episode 135.
Bonus music.
Yeah, bonus music.
We're getting some...
yeah, I think it's just fantastic. It's just radio. The ever on top of it production staff here at the War Room. Okay. Wow.
So today, 1 o'clock, Senate comes back in. We're expected to see Alan Dershowitz give his overview of how this entire impeachment witch hunt.
Is Dershowitz, we talked over the weekend to some of the attorneys. Do you start with Dershowitz today, or do you go back and wash, rinse, repeat? Do you reset at 1 o'clock the framework for what you've got and then have Dershowitz at the end of the day today?
I would go with it first, and I'll tell you why. Once we go into Bolton and start taking that head on,
and Biden, you want to have heads on pikes. It's going to be bloody after you pivot, so you want to get all the nice constitutional stuff out of the way first.
Yes, because once we go to that, the stories will all be written. That's what every reporter in town is waiting for. What do they say regarding Bolton? What do they say that in any way touches on what he's saying? What do we say about Biden? Once we go into those things, it's done. So you're going to see Dershowitz first, or early, I would expect. I think you're going to see Ken Starr. Not sure if we're going to see Ray up there, but definitely we're expected to see Pam Bondi today. But once we make that pivot to go on offense and start chopping up these guys, then it's going to be go time.
For all the Trump supporters out there, I just want to go back and reset this and make sure we actually, because in the fog of war, right, it's always, you got to keep your eye on the objective. All the news coming out of this weekend could not be more positive for the president, the real news. You got to separate out the signal from the noise, the signal from the noise. Remember, the way the mainstream media, the opposition party media operates, it's all noise. You got to separate out the signal from the noise. The signal here is that when President Trump gets a couple of hours with good attorneys, they turn the guns on Pericles of Athens, right, on Adam Schiff, who's been held up by the mainstream media as like this, almost godlike figure. They take it apart in a couple hours. And people are sitting there and go, gosh, I didn't really realize that when he starts taking it. And the polling that you just talked about, from polling operations, they're not warroom.org or the Daily Caller or Breitbart. These are the opposition party media mainstay polling operations, shows that President Trump's winning here. Note to Democrats, and they understand this, if you're tied with Donald Trump now, you're getting beaten in November, okay? You got to have a big lead. Hillary had a 12-point lead with 90 days to go. Let me repeat that. You pick who you want to do. It was anywhere from 8 to 16 points, right, on Hillary. In the battleground states, most of them double digits with 90 days to go, okay? When you're in a dead heat with Donald Trump, 9 months for where the economy's going and everything that he's doing, it's and nobody can remember the name of your candidates. Your debates are getting no traction. Nobody cares about your town halls. You're not drawing any significant crowds out there in Iowa. There's no heat on these guys. When they go to New Hampshire, there's no heat. There's no heat in South Carolina. The heat is coming from the thermonuclear weapon of Mike Bloomberg's money bomb, right? That's where Mike Bloomberg's up everywhere. He's the one coming at Trump hard, right? There's no heat on any of these candidates. That's the reality. That's the signal. Right? The noise is Saint Lev Parnas and the beatification project of him. Now he's got the audio and some of the video.
The real message here was it only took us 2 hours to destroy 3 days of your opening testimony. That's our message. The
3
Democrats,
days, and actually I would say 5 months of free shots on goal, and then everywhere from September 24th with Nancy Pelosi, where really the president hasn't had any, besides guys going up on Fox and Meadows and these guys doing a good job of being surrogates, there's really been, the nation has not had a chance to focus on exactly what it was. Once you got a chance to focus, you realize he's winning.
You know, I have a couple other problems with Book Deal Bolton. Obviously, I don't like Book Deal Bolton. I just think he's bad news. I think he's about himself. This is about making himself relevant. He's been pushing this for months at President Trump's expense because he has terrible policy viewpoints and he wasn't a good fit for the president. Wish he'd never been pushed in the first place. There's a real problem with what Bolton's doing here, and that is he is now saying that President Zelensky and Ukraine's foreign minister are liars.
Exactly.
He is directly, so people, John Bolton, Mr. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mr. High and Mighty, Mr. Let's go drop bombs on everybody. He is undermining the foreign policy of the United States.
Okay, you're a very practical, the reason that when I stepped into the Trump campaign, you were one of the rocks at Gibraltar. You're unflappable. The great thing about you, Jason Miller, no matter how much ordnance is dropped on any site, you're unflappable. Right now, and you've said this from the beginning, which is against all orthodoxy, why do you say, hey, if you got to be witnesses, bring them? And let me have the other ones. Why do you say that, as cynical as you are about the media?
I want witnesses to absolutely squash any of this talk that President Trump did anything wrong, because it's not true. And every time we've had witnesses take the stand or be in one of these hearings, they've fallen apart.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's one thing you got to remember. We have said this from the beginning. It's the reason we did the show. This process is not going to stop. When I left the White House, the first thing with Charlie Rose, the nullification project. They're obsessed with it. They don't have any policies the American people are going to buy. They don't have any personalities the American people are going to buy, right? They don't have that. It's got to be, they're fully maniacal focused, and now they're obsessed with it, is the destruction of Donald Trump, and by the destruction of Donald Trump, the movement that is in back of him.
And they've even been willing to throw Joe Biden under the bus.
Oh, Joe Biden, he's collateral damage. They could care less. Joe Biden gone, right? Yeah. They don't care. They are so obsessed with this. It's not going to stop. If we had an acquittal vote this Friday, it's not going to stop. They got more left. Parnas's tapes, that's what they're saying. Parnas has got hours and hours of tapes. More John Bolton. They're going to come. They got Anonymous. They got so much more they're going to bring. It's not going to stop. You see where Bloomberg, who says he's putting $1 billion, maybe $2 billion in to defeat Trump, not even for himself to be president, just to defeat Trump, is going to weaponize everything around this. That's why you have advocated from day one. Let's get it all out there.
Let's get it all out there. Let's go right at them. John Bolton, what proof do you have to any of this? The answer will be nothing, is maybe my speculation or my conjecture. John Bolton, why didn't you go and say something about it then? Why didn't you file a whistleblower report?
And
but you're saving it for your book. And magically, the story goes out the same day that your Amazon page goes live.
Come on. There's no coincidence. No coincidence. This is an organized hit on the President of the United States. And after Dershowitz gives his theoretical, the great stuff on the Constitution, they got to go in hard, right? There has to be heads on pikes this afternoon, okay? And they should take all 24 hours. They should not take one. Wash, rinse, repeat. We're going to return with episode 135 in a moment.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room, Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
27 January, year of our Lord 2020, episode 135. Just some housekeeping. Immediately following War Room Impeachment, we're going to do War Room Pandemic. A host of folks here, both scientists and national security and intelligence people that can walk through everything that's coming out of China. You want to stay tuned for that. After that, at 11 o'clock, we're going to have Vox Populi for 2 hours. That number is 888-480-5646. That leads us right into the beginning at 1 o'clock, the live testimony. We'll be covering all that. And then at 5 o'clock today, we're going to have a summary show from what we've seen, and then back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. An intense week of impeachment and pandemic. The whole world is coming at us. I want to turn to Jason Miller now. Jason, you're the master communication strategist on the campaign and the transition. Tell us how you play this today.
So I start off today with Alan Dershowitz doing the constitutional case for why this is complete garbage. Democrats shouldn't be pushing on this at all. It's unconstitutional. And then I start getting into essentially a refresher from what we saw on Saturday.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Wash, rinse, repeat. New audience. Don't assume that anyone learned anything from Saturday.
You're out of Death Valley.
Yes, you're out of Death Valley. The cameras are on. And guess what? Everyone is hyper-focused now because of this Bolton book leak. I also want to make sure I read just real quick the tweet from President Trump, or a couple tweets. He went back on this pretty strongly. I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. In fact, he never complained about this at the time of his very public termination. If John Bolton said this, it was only to sell a book. With that being said, the transcripts of my calls with President Zelensky are all the proof that is needed, in addition to the fact that President Zelensky and the foreign minister of Ukraine said there was no pressure and no problems. Additionally, I met with President Zelensky at the UN. Democrats said I never met, and released the military aid to Ukraine without any conditions or investigations, and far ahead of schedule. Also allowed Ukraine to purchase Javelin anti-tank missiles. My admin has done more than any other previous administration. So President Trump went right at this.
Was he listening to the first few minutes of the show?
I think so.
No. Did you write that tweet? No. Did you recommend that? No. I think President Trump just gave us his best defense.
And we need to start making the case today why we need Biden, why we need to get to the bottom of all this Ukraine corruption.
Listen, okay, folks, if they want Bolton and Pompeo and Mulvaney and all the emails at OMB and Vogt and Blair and all of them at OMB, you have them. Give us the whistleblower. Give us Schiff. Give us Brennan. Give us Biden. And throw in Hunter. Throw in where's Hunter as a player to be named later, right?
And I can't stress enough, why am I so confident that there's no there? Number one, every other explosive supposed allegation has fallen flat. Going back to the Russia hoax, it's all fallen flat. But here's the other thing. When Schiff said on CNN's New Day this morning that it's not about the manuscript, now we have to go and get his notes. That was the biggest tell of all. He knows that there's no there. There's maybe some speculation, maybe some conjecture from Book Deal Bolton. This is all about John Bolton trying to stay relevant. He's not. He's a loser, and he's showing it right now.
Okay, stick around, folks. At 10 o'clock, we're going to have War Room Pandemic, and then followed at 11 o'clock by War Room. We're going to have the Vox Populi. We get to call in 888-480-5646, starting at 11 o'clock to 1. Then it's going to be the trial of Donald Trump continues with his defense. 5 o'clock, a summary show. We'll all be here on War Room Impeachment, 135. Thank you.